We've probably all heard Pat Brown and Ethan Brown from Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat saying that they want to see the end of conventional animal agriculture. And that's for a lot of reasons, but basically they're saying, meat, you're terminated. And why do we need to terminate meat? Well, let's have a look at the story so far. In 2050, we are going to have 10 billion people to feed, another 2 billion more than are currently on the planet at the moment. And to feed them the same way that we eat in places like Australia, the US and the UK is impossible. There's simply not enough arable land or fresh water on the planet to feed people the way that we eat in industrialized countries. So how do we sustainably and equitably feed 10 billion people? Well, one way is through new technologies. Now, I'll hear you say, oh yes, but if we just redistribute the food that we have now, we eat a bit less and we waste less, we can feed the planet. We've been telling people in Western industrialized countries to eat less food to avoid diabetes and obesity for decades. It simply hasn't worked. And I don't believe it will work in the future. So what we need are new ways to sustainably and equitably increase the food production on the planet to feed these 10 billion people. So fortunately, rebel alternative technologies have arisen to challenge the animal agriculture empire. And these technologies include everything from the fairly obvious plant-based proteins. We now have cell-based mycoproteins, algae, biomass, all sorts of new technologies coming to the fore, promising to use less arable land, less fresh water, and generally less resources so that we can feed 10 billion people equitably and sustainably. Now, if we look at where we are with some of these technologies, and we won't get a chance to go through them all, then we should start with obviously plant protein. That's the most developed sector for the alternative meat technologies. And these rebel protein products are getting easier and easier to develop. Now, I'm not saying it takes 5 minutes to develop a good product, but I am saying it takes significantly less time now than it did when Beyond and Impossible started those handful of years ago. So what we're finding is that large companies with enormous resources are coming into the market, and they can provide you with proteins, fats, flavors, and everything else you need to put together to generate a highly competitive plant-based product. So basically everybody has or can have a product. And just to demonstrate how much easier it is, take V2 Foods in Australia. From a concept, starting the company in January 2019, they went to market with a product in October 2019 in Burger King, or Hungry Jack's as we call it over here. And they've just gone from strength to strength. They're now in retail as well with mince and patties. But are these new technologies, these new plant proteins, powerful enough to terminate meat? My view is no. And I don't say that because of any deficiency in the ability of plant-based proteins to mimic meat, to come up with great tasting products that look, smell, everything almost identical to meat. But I think physiologically, culturally, whatever the reason is, people want to eat meat, or a large proportion of them do. And another indicator is a conference that I went to in 2019 in Thailand. The lady there was presenting. She'd done the consumer research for McDonald's in generating their McCafe coffee, and they were testing against Starbucks. So they did a blind taste test of Starbucks versus McDonald's, and McDonald's won, no doubt. Then they labeled the coffee Starbucks, they labeled it McDonald's, and they tried again. Guess who won this time? Starbucks, because everybody knew that McDonald's coffee couldn't be better than Starbucks coffee. That's just the way it was. And I think that's a similar thing we could find with plant-based products, is you give me a product that looks, tastes, smells identical to a conventional animal meat product, but I know that it's plant-based. It's just not going to be the same. I want meat for whatever reason. That's what I want. It could be cultural. You got to be a real man, got to eat meat, or it could be physiological. Maybe there's something in meat that genetically we've inherited over thousands of years that means we want to eat meat. Fortunately, we have a game changer. We're now going where no cell has gone before. Cell-based products. These are one of the latest technologies to emerge, and they promise to be able to give us a product that tastes like meat, functions like meat, nutritious as meat, but doesn't require conventional animal agriculture. So if you like, we can have our cow and we can eat it too. Now, there's many competing technology factions here in the rebels, and not all of them may survive. Some will fail, just as all startups do, for various reasons, for financial reasons, management reasons, whatever those reasons are. But we're also going to see alliances formed. We're going to see takeovers formed, and we're seeing that at the moment. A couple of examples are Shock Meat using the Integraculture Cullnet system to make their cell-based shrimp product. And we've just recently seen Meat Tech buy Piece of Meat. So we're going to see all these things happen, and consolidations will happen over the next years and decades. But of course, it doesn't take many of these products and these technologies and companies to be successful to be a major challenge to conventional animal agriculture. How many of them will survive and which technologies will triumph, no one knows. It's going to be an interesting time. But let's not forget that 100% products are not the only option. How about hybrid meat products? Are they the future? We could have plant-based protein with cell-cultured meat from people like Cubic. We could use conventional meat with plant protein with fat from cell-based technologies. We could put algae in there, algal proteins, biomass proteins. There's endless numbers of combinations that we could see in the marketplace, and they could offer a good bridge between where we are now with 100% conventional products to either plant-based or cell-based products. Who knows? They could be a long-term factor in the marketplace as well. But why would people eat them? I hear people say, yeah, if I want meat, I'll eat meat. If I want plant, I'll eat plant. There are people who want one or the other, but there are people who want to reduce their meat consumption. We all hear about flexitarianism. Now, if these people want to reduce their meat content, but they really just can't, for whatever reason, bring themselves to eat 100% plant-based product, these could be a really good option for them. So I think that there's some real opportunities in these products. And as I said, many potential types of hybrids. But why would people want to do some of these things at all? I mean, we're seeing things now that people wouldn't believe 5, 10 years ago. And why? From a commercial point of view, the opportunity for meat is $1 to $1.5 trillion. That's a lot of money. Even 10% of that, 150 billion, is a lot of money. And where are we at the moment, heading to that opportunity? Well, we're going to see cultivated meat plants in operation by the end of 2021. I was speaking to Lou Cooperhouse the other week, and he was saying his cell-based aquaculture pilot plant will be online at the end of 2021, making 500 pounds, a couple of 100 kilos of product a week. If we look then further on, they have their phase 5, and they're going to operate commercial plants as well. Now, let's say 2025 for that. Let's not forget that no one's going to simply build 100 plants at once. They're going to come on slowly. People are going to watch these pilot plants, see which technologies will survive, which are the best. And it's going to take a large investment, a long time to build capacity. 2025, we start seeing commercial plants in operation. Let's not forget, 2 years from making a decision to build a plant to full construction and commercialization. So we are simply not going to see conventional animal agriculture replaced anytime soon, in my opinion, and even physically, it's going to take a long time. There are 80 large slaughterhouses in the US and hundreds worldwide. And we're going to need to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to replace those plants and build capacity. Now, the money is out there, that's for sure, but it is going to take time and effort. And being such an interesting and profitable, potentially profitable segment to be in, who are some of the people that are actually almost in this space already? Big Pharma. If you have a look at one of the largest biologics producers in the world, it's Samsung. Yep, the same people who make our phones, TVs, Samsung. How did they make the transition to the biggest biologics producer in the world? Well, they had expertise and techniques that could transfer, clean rooms, attention to detail, deep scientific understanding. They have become the biggest biologics producer in the world. Now, what's to say that we're not going to see something like Samsung JBS? How about Merck Tyson? Merck already have 2 cell-based laboratories in the world, one in Europe and one in the US. They are accustomed to spending billions of dollars on each plant. And it's going to be very, very interesting in the next decade to see whether they step in to take advantage of this opportunity. They have the skills. Let's wait and see. So is it a matter for the conventional animal empire that resistance is futile? Or is it? So the empire strikes back. We think sometimes of conventional animal agriculture as being very backward, no technology, things like that. Don't believe that for an instant. We have a lot of advantages in alternative meat products, that's for sure. But for instance, in conventional animal agriculture, there's work going on so that an animal, whether it has a male Y chromosome or not, will grow as fast as a male animal. This is in cattle. And male animals convert feed 15% better and more efficiently than female cattle convert feed into meat. 15%. That's a big advantage. Now, of course, alternative meat's big advantage against beef in particular is that to check something out properly, you have to wait for the gestation period of the animal, some growth, check that it all works, and then go, yes, it works, or it doesn't, and you may have to start again. Obviously, chicken, pork, different lot, faster cycles, but we can iterate in plant-based and even potentially cell-based virtually any time we like, months at the most. And we're seeing that now. The number of iterations we've seen from Impossible and beyond in improving their products over the last few years has been phenomenal. I've certainly noticed them. So we do have definite advantages in alternative proteins. But why do we set our sights on as good as meat? I say don't set the sights so low. If we simply say that we're going to be as good as meat, job done, I don't think that's going to be good enough in the long term to tempt large numbers, the majority of the population, to convert to plant-based or cell-based products. We need to set our goals higher, make that product taste better, nutritionally superior, superior in all ways, possibly even personalized for different segments of the population. That is the opportunity that we have in alternative protein products versus conventional animal agriculture products. Now, things are only impossible until they're not. Some of the things that we're seeing now are science fiction of 5 or 10 years ago. Food is now technology. And if you think of that, think of food as technology, it changes your paradigm. If you look at smartphones, look at the technologies that have come along in that industry since the iPhone first came out in 2006. What's happened? Prices have dropped, features and benefits have gone up. If you consider food that way, that changes your paradigm on how fast these technologies will advance. We're in the linear looking part of the exponential curve for most of these technologies. When they hit the inflection point, then we'll really see things happen. But remember, food is technology. Impossible and Beyond, I say, are technology companies that make food. Samsung, at the moment, is a technology company that makes electronics. But we have to have a whole new paradigm on how we consider the food industry. So will conventional meat ever be terminated? I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think anyone who tells you they know the future, I think they're fooling themselves. I think there's definitely a future where conventional animal agriculture is niche and alternative proteins, who knows what the mix will be, take over as the majority of the marketplace. But to say that definitively this will happen, I don't think so. So going back almost to the start of where we were, of will history in 2050 commend or condemn the food industry? Will we squander the opportunities that we have in the 2020s in all these alternative proteins to drive them forward, to make a difference, to be able to feed humanity sustainably in equity in 2050 or not? Will we be able to reduce the need for arable land, reduce the need for water? Because as I said, people are not going to stop eating too much, and they're not going to stop wasting too much in the near future. I think we should certainly pursue those opportunities. But what I say is the way to sustainably and equitably feeding people in 2050 is to democratize the manufacturing capacity. So these technologies that we have should be applied to countries that don't have much arable land, don't have much fresh water, but they have land, and they can still produce their own food. Saudi Arabia could decide to be the biggest cell-based manufacturer of meat in the world. They have land, they don't have a lot of arable land to achieve that, but they could if they wanted to, and if money were provided to achieve that. So I say we need to distribute the means of production, because otherwise so many countries will be at the mercy of the twin tyrannies of arable land and fresh water. And those that have arable land and fresh water will have food security. Those that don't, won't. And that's something that we need to address, and we need to keep that in mind as we head towards 2050. So I like to think we'll be back, and I would love to be around at EMAC in 2050. I'm sure that we'll still be talking about new technologies, technologies that we can't even imagine as we sit here today. And I think it's the most exciting time to be in the food industry that I have seen in over 30 years. And I think everybody watching this, everybody at EMAC, food is technology, technology is fascinating, and it's going to be a wild ride to 2050. Thank you.